The CEO's amazing ex-wife is back. Chapter 1. Good evening. I'm here to see Mr. Jovan Carter. Is he available? Alina Gray asked politely, trying her best to hide the nerves in her voice. She stood at the front desk of the luxurious Andrus Hotel, fingers drumming lightly on the marble counter, though she didn't even realize it until a nearby woman gave her an irritated look. Alina flashed an apologetic smile, then looked back at the receptionist, who had just confirmed her name and appointment on the screen. Yes, he's expecting you. Suite 13. Take the elevator to the 7th floor, then turn left, the receptionist said with a tight smile. Thank you, Alina replied, her unease growing with every step she took toward the elevator. Something felt wrong. Her mother-in-law, Gloria Miller, had sent her on this errand. Gloria had never liked her. In fact, ever since she started dating her husband, Kelvin Miller, Gloria had found one way or another to make her feel like an outsider. And things had only worsened after she married him. So when Gloria called that afternoon and coldly told her to deliver some documents and have them signed, if she really wanted to be part of the family, Alina had jumped at the opportunity. Maybe, just maybe, if she succeeded, Gloria would stop treating her like trash. Maybe then Kelvin would look at her like he used to, before everything changed. Her phone rang, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was her best friend, Jasmine Hart. Ollie, you're really going to do what your witch of a mother-in-law asked? Jasmine asked bluntly. Yes, Alina said, sighing. I'm already at the hotel. But Jazz, I have this horrible feeling. Like I'm walking into something I won't come out of. Jasmine exhaled loudly on the other end. Alina, come on. It's just a signature. Gloria wants to test your loyalty or something. Don't overthink it. Alina gave a nervous smile. Yeah, you're probably right. The elevator dinged and opened. She stepped in and rode in silence. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. Suite 13. She hesitated briefly, then rang the bell. It took a few seconds, but the door swung open to reveal a shirtless man wearing nothing but blue shorts. His smile was smug and far too familiar. Mr. Jovan Carter? Alina asked, forcing a polite tone. At your service, he said, leaning casually against the doorframe. You must be Alina Gray. Please come in. Reluctantly, she stepped inside the suite's sleek living room. He gestured toward the couch. Have a seat. She wanted to stay standing, better yet leave, but she remembered Gloria's warning not to upset him. She sat stiffly on the edge of the cushion. What can I get you? Wine. Something stronger? Jovan asked with a wink. I'm fine, thank you, Alina replied, teeth clenched. I just need you to sign these. She pulled out the sealed folder from her bag and held it out to him. Gloria said you're already familiar with the contents. Alina hadn't dared open the folder. Her mother-in-law had warned her not to, told her it wasn't her business, and that it had to be delivered exactly as it was. Jovan took the file and casually unsealed it, walking around the room as he skimmed through it. Alina shifted in her seat, uncomfortable under his shirtless presence and the strange silence stretching out. 5 long minutes passed. Then the doorbell rang. Jovan opened it without hesitation. Kelvin Miller stormed into the room, fury written all over his face. Where is she? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Alina jumped to her feet, her heart skipping in relief. Kelvin, you're here, she said, trying to rush toward him. But before she could get close, he shoved her backward with one hand pressed firmly against her shoulder. She stumbled, stunned. "'Kay, Kelvin," she whispered, confused. Then Gloria entered behind him, her expression twisted in disgust. "You ungrateful slut. After all my family has done for you, this is how you repay us." Before Alina could make sense of the words, Gloria's palm struck her across the face. Alina gasped, holding her cheek, blinking in shock. What are you talking about?" Gloria sneered. "Don't pretend you don't know. You've been stealing from us. Millions. Transferred to offshore accounts, with the help of your little boyfriend here," she said, jerking her chin toward Jovan. Alina's stomach dropped. Her ears rang. She shook her head slowly. No, you told me to come here. You gave me the folder. You said to get it signed. Oh, now you want to drag me down with you?" Gloria barked. She turned to Kelvin. "Go ahead, son. See for yourself what your wife has been doing behind your back." Kelvin snatched the folder from Jovan's hands. His eyes skimmed over the pages, his jaw tightening with every second. When he finally looked back at Alina, the ice in his gaze hit harder than any slap. Alina, trembling, reached out and took the folder from his hands, her own fingers shaking as she flipped through the pages. It was full of falsified transactions, illegal transfers, laundered money, all with her name on it. Her breath hitched. Her eyes burned. She finally understood. She had been framed. This was a setup. Gloria had set her up. "I didn't know," she whispered, eyes pleading as she looked up at Kelvin. "I swear to you, I didn't know what was in those papers. I never would have agreed if I had known. Please, you have to believe me." "Liar," he spat, stepping closer until their faces were inches apart. "You've been lying to me from the start. You've always been a fake. And now, I see just how low you can go." Alina flinched at his words, her mouth trembling. "I would never betray you. You mean everything to me." "Shut up," Kelvin snapped. "I don't want to hear another word from your filthy mouth." Then Gloria's voice rang out again, cruel and triumphant. "Come in, officers." The door opened and 2 police officers stepped inside. Alina's breath caught in her throat. She turned to Kelvin, panic rising in her chest. "Kelvin, you're not going to let them arrest me. You know I didn't do anything. Please." But Kelvin didn't blink. His voice was as cold as steel when he said, "Take them both away." Chapter 2. The cold cuffs snapped around her wrists before she could say another word. Alina stood frozen, her arms trembling as the officers flanked her on both sides. She couldn't speak, couldn't move, could barely breathe. This wasn't just humiliation, it was betrayal so deep it made her soul ache. The flashing cameras outside the hotel entrance blinded her. Reporters were already waiting, as if this had been planned. Microphones shoved into her face. Questions hurled like stones. "Mrs. Miller, is it true you embezzled company funds? Is this a case of marital betrayal or corporate fraud? Was your lover inside the hotel room with you?" Alina didn't answer. She couldn't. Her lips refused to move. All she could hear was her heartbeat, pounding wildly in her ears, and the sound of Kelvin's voice echoing in her head. "You disgust me." They shoved her into the back of the police car. The door slammed shut. Inside the dark vehicle, Alina stared blankly ahead. Her fingers were numb. Her heart shattered. How could this be happening? Her mind replayed the moments. The setup, Gloria's fake kindness, the sealed folder, Jasmine's warning, Kelvin's cold eyes, Jovan's smug smile. She hadn't seen it coming. She had walked right into their trap, thinking that if she just did everything right, she might finally be accepted. Instead, she was being thrown away like trash. The cell was cold. The concrete floor scraped her knees when she was thrown inside. No apology, no explanation, just silence and the metal door slamming shut behind her. She sat in the corner, her back against the wall, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes wide open. There was no sleep that night, just pain and anger. The next morning, a low voice called out from behind the bars. "Gray, you've got a visitor." Alina slowly raised her head. Her lips were cracked. Her body ached. She stood up shakily as the guard unlocked the door and led her to the visitation room. When she saw who was waiting, her knees nearly buckled. Kelvin, still in his crisp black suit, arms folded, face expressionless. Her breath hitched. "Kelvin, don't," he said coldly, cutting her off. She stood silently, hoping he would at least let her speak. "I'm only here because my lawyer advised me to clear up a few things. You'll be processed in court by next week," he said flatly. Alina's fingers curled into fists. "Kelvin, please listen to me. You've known me for years. You know I wouldn't." "I don't know you at all," he replied, his eyes dead. "The woman I married would never stab me in the back." "I didn't," she started, but he raised a hand to silence her. "My mother may have flaws, but she would never create fake evidence." That made Alina laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. "You really think your mother wouldn't frame me just to get rid of me?" she said bitterly. "You think she ever wanted me in your life? She gave you everything," Kelvin snapped. "She welcomed you into our family. And this is how you repay her." Alina stared at him in disbelief. "She hated me from day one. You know that, but you chose not to see it. You always looked the other way. And now you believe her over me? Because the evidence is there," he shouted. "Your name is on those transfers. The documents were sealed when she gave them to me. She warned me not to open them. How do you not see that I was set up?" Kelvin leaned forward, his face inches from hers. "I hate liars, and I hate traitors more." Alina's heart cracked again. But this time, something inside her snapped too. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She stood straight, lifting her chin. "Then go ahead," she whispered. Hate me. Watch me rot here if that's what makes you feel powerful. But don't forget this moment, Kelvin. His brows furrowed. What moment? The moment you lost the only woman who ever truly loved you. The guard returned, tapping his baton on the door. Kelvin turned without another word. Alina stared at his back as he walked away. The man she had given everything to. The man who had just left her to burn. That night, Alina sat alone in her cell. Her mind was no longer spinning. It was sharp, clear, focused. They wanted her gone. Broken. Silenced. But they had forgotten one thing. Alina Gray didn't stay down. If they thought they had destroyed her, they hadn't seen anything yet. She wasn't going to beg for mercy. She wasn't going to cry for help. She was going to survive. Then she was going to come back stronger, colder, smarter. And she was going to make every single one of them regret the day they crossed her. Let the game begin. Chapter 3. The trial came fast, too fast. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, strangers, and people who once called her family, now sitting like strangers in the front row. Alina sat at the defendant's table in a plain blouse and blazer. No makeup, no jewelry. Her wrists still carried faint bruises from the handcuffs. The whispers in the crowd swirled like smoke around her, thick and poisonous. Across the room sat Kelvin, his arms folded tightly, jaw clenched. Gloria, next to him, wore all black like she was attending a funeral. And maybe she was. Alina's. Jovan, the man who helped frame her, didn't show. Coward. The judge entered, and the courtroom quieted. The trial began. Her lawyer tried his best, but the evidence Gloria had planted was too perfect. Bank statements, signatures, offshore account numbers that somehow all traced back to Alina. All fake, all forged. But how do you fight evidence that's been carefully crafted to destroy you? Alina sat through it all, her face unreadable. Each lie was a dagger. Each accusation a stab to the soul. But she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She knew better now. They didn't want justice. They wanted her gone. Guilty. The word echoed through the room like a bomb going off. Alina blinked once. Twice. That was it. The sentence followed. 2 years in prison, reduced because of lack of prior offenses. Mercy, they called it. Kelvin didn't flinch. He didn't even look at her. As the guards led her away, Alina held her head high. She had lost her freedom, her name, her marriage, but not her fire. They hadn't destroyed her. They'd awakened her. Prison was hell. The walls were gray. The food was barely edible. The cold at night crept into her bones and stayed there. But the worst part wasn't the physical pain. It was the silence. The time. The endless hours to think about how her life had been ripped apart. But Alina didn't waste her time. She read everything she could get her hands on: law, business, psychology. She exercised until her body ached and strengthened. She stayed alert, kept quiet, and watched everything. Most of all, she planned. She thought about Kelvin's face as he walked out on her. About Gloria's twisted smirk when the verdict was read. About Jovan, hiding after helping frame her. She thought about Jasmine, her best friend, who had gone quiet the minute Alina was arrested. No visits. No calls. Just silence. Everyone had left her. And that was fine. Because when she returned, she wouldn't need anyone. She was going to take everything they had stolen from her and burn the rest to the ground. 2 years later, the gates opened. Alina stepped out into the sunlight, a duffel bag on her shoulder, her back straight, her eyes sharper than they had ever been. The sky looked different. The world felt new. She wasn't the naive girl who had once begged her husband to believe her. She was something else now. Something stronger. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, and the window rolled down. A familiar face smiled from the driver's seat. "You've changed," said the woman behind the wheel. "I had to," Alina replied, her voice calm. "Thank you for coming." The woman stepped out and hugged her tight. It was Nora, an old friend Alina had barely trusted before, but who had been quietly working in the background during her prison time. "You ready to take your life back?" Nora asked. Alina smirked as she slid into the passenger seat. "No, I'm ready to take everything." The city hadn't changed, but Alina had. She walked through the lobby of the brand new high-rise Nora had taken her to, and the staff stared, unsure whether to greet her or step aside. Her outfit was sleek. Tailored black pants, a wine-red blouse, and heels sharp enough to kill. No more soft curls. Her hair was tied back, smooth and professional. Her eyes held no emotion. This was a new beginning, and the first step in her comeback. Nora led her into the office at the top floor. "I've been managing the accounts as we discussed," Nora said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Everything's clean. No ties to your old name. The investments are growing fast. And that tech startup we secretly funded? It's about to go public." Alina nodded, flipping through the files. "Perfect. Keep it that way. And the company your ex-husband runs?" Alina's lips curved slowly. "First, I'm going to buy his biggest competitor," she said calmly. "Then I'm going to destroy his legacy one contract at a time." Nora grinned. "Damn, you're terrifying now." "Good," Alina replied, "because I'm not here to play nice anymore." Chapter 4. 3 days after her release, Alina stood outside the gates of what used to be her home. The Miller estate stood tall and cold in the distance, its towering walls just as cruel as the people inside them. She had come here not out of nostalgia, but because she needed to see it one last time, to bury whatever broken pieces of her past still clung to it. She stood on the sidewalk in silence, staring at the mansion behind the ornate gates. The same mansion where she had once thought she'd grow old with Kelvin, where she had cooked dinner hoping he'd eat with her, where she had sat up late at night waiting for him to come home from the office, only to be told he was too tired to talk. And now, she was the disgraced ex-convict everyone gossiped about, the woman who had betrayed the mighty Miller family. Only it wasn't true. But no one cared. A black luxury car drove past her and stopped at the entrance. She knew that car. Her chest tightened. The door opened, and Kelvin stepped out, looking exactly as he had the last time she saw him. Sharp suit, cold eyes, the weight of arrogance draped on his shoulders like armor. And then her stomach dropped. He wasn't alone. A woman stepped out after him, tall, elegant, laughing softly as she held onto his arm like it was hers to keep. Alina's heart cracked again, fresh and raw. It was Jasmine, her best friend, the same one who had promised to stand by her, the same one who had gone quiet the second things fell apart. And now, she was walking into Alina's former life, hand in hand with the man Alina had once loved more than anyone. Alina didn't move. She couldn't. She just stood there, frozen. They didn't notice her. Of course they didn't. They were too wrapped up in their lies. She watched as the gate opened for them, letting them walk freely into the home she'd been dragged out of in handcuffs. The same home where she had been falsely accused, where Kelvin had turned his back on her without a shred of hesitation. As the gate closed behind them, Alina finally turned away. Every part of her was burning, but her eyes stayed dry, because tears weren't welcome anymore. Later that night, she lay in her new apartment, staring at the ceiling. Her fingers traced the old scar on her wrist, one she got from slipping while trying to clean the glass floor-to-ceiling windows in the Miller estate. She had bled silently that day. No one had noticed. No one had cared. That wound had healed, but the scars inside her hadn't. She thought of Kelvin's eyes when he last looked at her, filled with disgust. She thought of Jasmine's betrayal, the quiet, careful way she had stepped into Alina's place, waited for her fall, and claimed what wasn't hers. And worst of all, she thought of herself. The woman who used to beg for love. The woman who once tried so hard to be good enough for people who only saw her as a convenience. A stepping stone. A placeholder. They had all seen her as weak. But they didn't know the fire prison had lit inside her. Alina sat up and reached for her laptop. She opened the private folder Nora had sent her. A list of companies under the Miller Group umbrella. All of them dependent on one fragile merger deal set to renew in 4 months. If that deal failed, it would shake the entire structure. And she was going to make sure it did. One phone call at a time. One chess move after another. They thought she had been eliminated. But what they didn't understand was that Alina Gray was not someone you bury. She was someone you unleashed. The next day, the media was buzzing. Former Miller heiress released from prison after 2 years. Where is she now? Alina Gray, betrayer or victim? They didn't know. But they were curious. Which was exactly what she wanted. In a city where reputation meant power, curiosity was the seed that could grow into fear. Nora dropped by later that evening with coffee and updates. "They're watching you," she said, handing her the drink. "Gloria's paranoid you're going to go public. She's already trying to smear you before you can even speak." Alina chuckled bitterly. "Let her. The louder she screams, the guiltier she looks." "And Kelvin?" Alina looked away. "What about him?" Nora paused. "He's dating Jasmine now. Publicly. They made it official last month. The media is already labeling her the next Mrs. Miller." Alina didn't flinch, but her heart did. She turned toward the window, eyes focused on the skyline. Good for them, she said flatly. They deserve each other. Nora nodded slowly, then cleared her throat. You ready for the gala next weekend? That'll be your first appearance. You sure you're ready to face them all? I don't want to face them, Alina said, her voice low. I want them to see me. I want them to wonder how I survived. I want them to feel it in their bones that they made a mistake. Nora smiled. Then wear red. It'll match their blood when you tear them apart. Alina didn't smile back. Her face was calm, but her eyes were burning. Not with rage anymore, but with cold, calculated focus. Because she wasn't out for revenge. She was out for justice. The kind that didn't come from a courtroom. The kind that came from taking everything back and leaving nothing behind. That night, she opened the sealed folder containing copies of the original forged documents, the ones that had framed her. There was a name buried deep in the fine print. A financial consultant hired just weeks before she was arrested. A man named Trevor Dake. Not someone she'd ever met, but someone who had been paid handsomely to forge signatures and shift money into accounts made to look like hers. And now Trevor had vanished. But people don't disappear without leaving shadows. And Alina knew exactly where to find them. She closed the folder, her fingers tight around the edges. It was time. The next chapter of her life had already begun. And this time, she was writing the ending. Chapter 5. The bruises on Marissa's arms hadn't faded, but no one in the Daniels mansion seemed to notice or care. Not Connor. Not Sylvia. Not even the maids dared to look her in the eye anymore. She had become invisible in a house she once thought she'd build a life in. A ghost, trapped between four gilded walls, dressed in the finest clothes that couldn't cover her shattered soul. That morning, as she stepped into the dining room to serve breakfast. Yes, serve, because Sylvia had commanded she no longer be waited on. Marissa's hands trembled as she placed Connor's coffee beside his hand. He didn't look up from his phone. Sylvia sat opposite him, clad in a silk robe, freshly manicured nails tapping against her juice glass as she smiled sweetly. Why is this cold? Sylvia asked, her voice calm but sharp like a blade. She pushed the plate of eggs toward Marissa without sparing a glance. I'm sorry, Marissa murmured. Aye. Before she could finish, the plate clattered onto the floor. The food splattered on her dress, and the sound silenced the room. Connor didn't react. He didn't even blink. Sylvia, however, stood and stepped close, wiping the mess off her robe with a napkin. You used to be someone, Marissa, she whispered just loud enough for her to hear. A rising star in the medical world. Now look at you, cleaning up my breakfast like a servant. Marissa bent to clean the floor, her knees aching as she scrubbed the expensive tiles while holding back tears. She wanted to scream. She wanted to remind them who she truly was. But what was the point? Connor had made his decision the moment he humiliated her at their wedding. When she was done, she rose and walked back to her room. No, her cage. The door barely closed behind her when her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. Her heart stopped for a second. Could it be someone from the outside? She answered with a quiet hello. Dr. Nash? A deep male voice said. Her breath caught. I'm not, she stammered. Don't hang up, he said urgently. I don't know what happened, but your identity's been wiped from every record. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Your research project, it's being stolen. Marissa blinked rapidly. What do you mean? Someone's presenting it under the name Sylvia Wade. She's claimed your authorship, the funding, everything. Her heart dropped. She almost dropped the phone. How is that possible? She used your old credentials. And someone at the Daniels Corporation backed her. Probably your husband. Marissa didn't respond. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her ears rang with the sound of betrayal. Not just from Sylvia, but Connor too. I can help you, the voice continued. If you want to fight back. Fight back. The words sank in slowly. She'd been crawling, swallowing humiliation, begging for crumbs of dignity. But now the world outside was still watching, and someone had finally reminded her of who she used to be. I'll call you back, she whispered before ending the call. She turned slowly toward the vanity mirror and stared at the woman who stared back. Her face was pale, her lips cracked, her eyes empty. That night, Connor returned later than usual. His tie was loose, and he smelled faintly of Sylvia's perfume. Marissa didn't speak. She merely helped him take off his coat and poured him a drink like always. He sat on the edge of the bed, still silent. Do you love her? She asked quietly. Connor looked up, surprised. What? Sylvia, she said, her voice steadier now. Do you love her? He stared at her as if trying to decide whether she even deserved an answer. Then, in that same cold, emotionless tone he'd perfected, he replied, "Yes." The word crushed her. She nodded. No anger, no tears, only a long, aching silence as she turned away and walked to the window. "I gave you everything," she said without looking back. "I gave up my name, my dignity. I bled for you. And yet you still failed to be what I needed," Connor said bluntly, taking another sip of whiskey. She stood there in the dim moonlight, her hands clenched at her sides. "Then I have nothing left to lose," she whispered to herself. What Connor didn't know, what Sylvia could never imagine, was that the woman they'd torn apart piece by piece wasn't gone. She was only sleeping, and now, something inside her had begun to wake. Let them enjoy their little kingdom. Let them revel in her silence and pain. Because karma never knocks, it kicks the door down. And Marissa was no longer going to wait for it. She would become it,